Welcome to episode 36 of ChatDPS, where this week we inspect the latest cybersecurity stats released on Reddit. Big debate this week as to whether you actually believe anything that's said on Reddit and whether you actually should be using it as part of your AI tooling. But regardless, there's some really interesting stats that have come out of it. The report is wide-ranging and throws out some surprising data about where we are all at and what's getting us caught out. And it's worthy of some commentary as we find some of the findings are quite disturbing, and although they're quite broad as well in this, as we give them as part of this report. So the first one that we've picked out is the federal cyber priorities as they reshape cybersecurity strategy. And this is US based and it's pertaining to the recent cuts that have been made. 85% of security teams have experienced budget or resource related changes in the last 6 months. 79% of IT and security decision makers say federal defunding has increased overall cyber risk. And 79% of UK IT and security decision makers say growing US cybersecurity instability has made some more cautious with US-based vendors. Quite clearly talking about the cloud there. Adam, I'm going to throw to you first. I mean, there's some really quite frightening stuff going on there. That's a significant majority of the professionals that have been approached that are kind of concerned.
Yeah, it's really interesting. So like from my perspective on this, budget cuts specifically have this ripple effect as it goes through the rest of the world, and they feel the shockwaves from it. And one of the ways that we're noticing that is your brethren in the UK are starting to treating US vendors more like a risk checkbox. And it's really interesting because now their currency is distrust. So how much distrust as opposed to how much cost when it comes through with these things, which is really, really interesting. It's such a change from where it was 5 years ago because of what's going on now.
Right. I mean, this beggars belief, right? I mean, sort of like new government comes in, slashes the budget, said this is, we're paying way too much money on this stuff, and throwing into jeopardy so much of the revenue that they receive through cloud domination, basically. It's a crazy world.
Yeah,
Yeah, and it makes it very... You go, Robert, sorry.
I was going to say, look at it impacts both the public and the private sector. So if you think about the American equivalent of the ACSC, which is the federal agency over here. So if you imagine the US equivalent has had its budget cut, so that impacts their ability to monitor, look after threats, work with the private sector in terms of dealing with cyber and work on things like cyber resilience. So if you're seeing that in the US, it just exposes the US to greater risk of attack, and from different organizations, whether they be nation states or whether they be smaller organizations attacking US companies, both public and private sector again. Yeah, I mean it throws up questions around dealing with those US companies, dealing with the federal government in the US, and brings into question sovereign capability, once again, looking at it from an Australian perspective.
Yeah, it's a crazy thing. Did you want to finish off there, Adam?
Yeah, on this one, I think from a CISO perspective, the biggest worry here, if I was to put it into the Australian side of things, it would be as if you weren't able to contact ASD to help you when you've been in a cyber attack. So for us, where is the stick when it comes to international cybercrime? If you remove the budget from the government on the area in which they're protecting you externally, then you no longer have the resources to be able to have a stick for these different criminal organizations. So they'll just become more rampant.
Yeah, monkey see, monkey do. It is a worry, right? There's a few of these to get through because this was a broad-ranging report. The next one I wanted to tackle was ransomware, and this is based on Coveware data. The median ransom payment in Q2 2025 was $400,000. These are obviously American dollars as well, so not just our tin pot Australian dollars. This is real money, the big stuff, which is a 100% increase from Q1 2025. That's a frightening stat all by itself. Data exfiltration was a factor in 74% of all ransomware cases in Q2 2025. And the industries hit hardest by ransomware in Q2 2025 were professional services, 19.7%, healthcare, 13.7%, and consumer services at 13.7%. I mean, that, it's talking seriously. I mean, you're a CISO in a global organization. That's got to be a worry.
100%. And that's like the fact that it's doubled in the last very few amounts of months from what we've seen is just huge. So the other thing that we've noticed with this is 74% of all the cases that they're aware of have theft, data theft. So this idea of double dipping when they come through, not only do they want your cash, they want what's valuable and or your company's secrets, whether it's for espionage or whatever. And even when you pay, when it comes to the data that they collect, there's no telling if they actually remove that or if a larger ransomware group was to take it over, that they wouldn't then just put the data out anyway. So it's a really, really big worry, and we really need to start looking at, like, from a CISO perspective. I really have to start looking at where we have our data, who holds our data, how do I know when my data has been moved and where it goes to. Those type of questions, which they're not the sexy subjects that people come and listen to at a conference, and they're becoming the core part of your day.
Yeah, 74% says a lot. Robert, have you got any observations on this? I mean, particularly the industry verticals as well. I mean, professional
Yeah.
services, that covers yourself, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've probably touched on these before, but yeah, it's worth repeating again. It's so professional services, healthcare, consumer services. Well, what do we know about those sectors? They're data rich, and generally speaking, a lot of these will be small to medium enterprises. They won't be investing significantly in security. They won't be thinking about protecting the data. They won't be thinking about encryption and those sorts of things, and they won't be training up their people. And they're right for target by these threat actors. So it's no surprise these are rich sectors to be exploited just because of the nature of the business that they do.
Yeah, it's a crazy world. So, I mean, the people that are there to help you and protect you, I suppose, and everything are the ones that have got the data. Therefore, they're the ones that people are going after, I guess. I'd like to move on rather quickly. AI. So, AI, this is taken from the Insider AI threat report that was released by Calypso AI. 42% of security professionals knowingly use AI against company policy, apparently, according to this report. And more than half of US workforce, 52%, is willing to break policy if AI makes their job easier. 35% of C-suite execs say that they have submitted proprietary company information so AI could complete a task for them. This is, obviously, I don't think the people have actually understood the inherent danger of this, and sort of like why we have laws in place to keep things private.
Okay, all right. Well, so for me, this starts at the very kind of top in terms of the decision to go with whether it's some sort of large language model or some sort of automation, agentic AI, whatever you want to call the particular tool. What decisions are being made by the owners of the business, the board, in terms of bringing that tool in? Because it starts with those initial risk assessments. What problems are you trying to solve? And if you're going to bring something in, and it's kind of boring, but you have to think about organizational change management. You've got to have your policies and your processes, and you've got to do the proper training, and you've got to explain to people, okay, we're going to make this change about the way you do work, and these are the processes and procedures you've got to follow. And then you've got to monitor it, and you've got to enforce it to make sure that people are doing the right thing. This is all kind of boring stuff, but unfortunately, I mean, this is all part of risk management, governance framework, I say organizational change management. These are the things you've got to do to make sure that you are compliant with the laws, and you're ethically compliant as well as making sure that you're staying within sort of general compliance. And you've got to think about what is the impact. So if you're bringing in things like agentic AI, what are the consequences of that? And am I going to be breaching privacy laws? When one tool integrates with another and starts pulling down all sorts of information, what information is being exposed? What am I doing in terms of privacy impact assessments? So you've actually got to put the hard work in beforehand instead of just throwing in, oh, we're going to start using Copilot tomorrow. Off you go. You've actually got to step through this stuff.
It's because I've got a few.
So it's so true. No, no, no. It's so true. This one's really interesting because this is the insider threat that we build ourselves across the board. What I will say about this is a process that we have brought in where I work. So we actually have a review for AI tools that I do from a security perspective and legal does from a legal perspective. And without sign off from both groups, it doesn't happen. And it's pretty extensive, that's from the security perspective and from the legal perspective for the same reasons Robert said before. So it's really important that you have this type of a framework in where you have multiple units working together to give the all clear before you go through, especially considering this very much is the new shadow IT. The report, I think, said something like almost half, so 46% or so of employees actually hide the AI use that they do.
Yeah, yeah.
So, they're you're not even knowing. So if they're utilizing like the free version of Grok or ChatGPT or whatever, everything that you do on that is trainable data. And interestingly enough, you can look on the internet and find out ways to prompt to get that information back out later.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'd like to pick up on your point there around grey IT, because this is the very thing that I remember most from corporate life, was the fact that we discovered that, people were going to IT department in inverted commas and saying, oh, I want this doing. And they were getting the common, response of 6 months, in the belief that, that the problem would just go away. And there was no such thing as, customer service or anything like that. And people didn't really understand the customer service conversation really that well in those days. But what they did discover was that there was a huge spike in cloud usage that the company was paying for on people's company credit cards. And here again, what you're actually seeing is that again, but with the risks magnified by a significant amount, because they just don't understand what that risk is. And what you're saying, Adam, is the fact that, look, we've got a legal review, we've got a technology review process, and if neither of those are done, then it just doesn't bloody well happen. The network's locked down. Yeah, that's a good thing, right? I mean, that's good practice. But I mean, they're going to find companies that have got no policy around this and no way of guarding it are going to find that their costs are going to blow out, and that their information, their corporate information, is going to be somewhere other than where it should be. And that's very worrying.
Our industry is circular. So
Yeah.
what you'll find now is the buzzword for everyone at the moment is around authentication and around zero trust. What you're going to see soon, because of the AI usage being so prevalent, is the idea of the SASE model coming back again. So that middleman between cloud and you to protect what's going on, what's going up, that side of things. So the next dip up of buzzwords will go back to that. So that's what I would think
It's
will
just
happen
too
there.
easy. It's just too easy, right? I mean, and people are, I mean, I'm not being funny or anything. If you believe that people are inherently lazy, I don't actually happen to believe that, but there are a lot of people out there that will take some shortcuts in order to be able to get to where they need to be. That doesn't make them lazy. It just makes them smart, in inverted commas, hopefully not smart enough to avoid paying their taxes. But anyway, that's a different debate. Securing the future of agentic.
Sorry, yeah, I was just going to say before we move on, it's not on the list, but what just sort of popped into my mind was MIT put out a paper. They did a survey of organizations where they found that I think 90% of those organizations, they weren't actually meeting their business case for putting whatever AI solution in place was. And there was a huge reaction in the US, negative reaction, where everyone's now saying, oh, well, the AI bubble is about to burst because it's just not delivering. And again, this comes back to this point about people just, throwing in an LLM and going, okay, we're gonna make cost savings, or we're gonna let people go. And it just doesn't work like that, because you're not thinking it through. I mean, again, a separate thing that happened in the last week or so. Commonwealth Bank, the CEO of Commonwealth Bank, basically said that they need to actually bring people back. So they were going to go with AI, or they're going to let a whole bunch of people go. And then they realized that the business case wasn't actually being proven. You actually needed humans in the loop to do some of this stuff they expected AI to do. You really have to think through whatever tool you're bringing in, and you need to actually go maybe a little bit more slowly, run a pilot and see how that goes before you start rolling that out and making decisions about whether you're going to cut staff. So I think there's a few lessons to be learned there.
Yeah, very mindful of time. So I'm just going to confuse everybody and skip over to the state of network security in business and professional services. This was put in as a contribution made by Ariaka, report on networking and security challenges and trends in business and professional services. Some interesting stats here. 72% of senior IT and infrastructure leaders in the business and professional services industry identified improving application and SaaS performance as their top strategic networking and security priority. 66% identified securing SaaS and public cloud apps as a top networking and security challenge. But only 38% of business services leaders view edge security as mission critical. I mean, it's kind of interesting how that inverse actually happens there, Adam. I mean, do you have a perspective on that yourself?
The issue that you have here is people are looking at what are the things they use the most every day, and then and using that as their gauge of critical systems. So you'll see what you think should be the most important. You were talking about the edge just before, right? So how you get into usually the soft underbelly of what you're doing, which is probably the thing that you should be worried about the most, more than access to Salesforce and how quick your page changes. But because you're in it all day, that's very important. I think we get skewed a little bit sometimes because we don't often think, what is our business? How does it make the world a better place? And how does it achieve that goal? And then make things critical based off of that criteria, because that's harder to do.
Yeah, I mean, Robert. I mean, are you seeing things in exactly the same way, or I mean, are you looking at this from a different perspective as well?
I mean, similar sort of way. I mean, for me, it comes down to, again, governance, risk assessment. So, what are the risks to your business, and that should be a key part of determining where you spend your money. So, it's not all about how do I increase productivity, how do I increase my revenue. It's also, okay, so what are the risks to this particular business in the sector that we are in? And you talk. This is all kind of professional services focused. Well, based on the data, making sure that your business is cyber resilient should be one of your top risks you should be addressing, and you should be focusing on protecting that as one of the critical things that you do. So you should be taking a risk-based
Yeah, so I
focus,
think
and you should be taking a sector-based focus and looking at across your sector what are the key things that you should be actually addressing. What are the mitigations you should be putting in place to address the risks to your particular business.
so. It's posing the right problem question to begin with internally, and are you measuring the right things internally in order to be able to achieve the outcomes? I think, Adam, you just identified the fact that people think that it's the most critical systems are the ones that are used most often. It's not often not the case yet. So
Yeah.
I mean, it's not the ones that are going to create damage, for instance, the chat stuff between people and what have you in work, and then compared to the actual databases themselves. And we've skipped over API usage in this particular one, but I think that's something that we'll probably come back to. Guys, thanks ever so much. It's been a fascinating sort of look at things. And I think that what we will do is look at some of that information again later on, because there are some other fascinating facts that have been thrown out through these reports, and they're relevant and pertinent, and they are right now, rather than oh yeah, that was last year or the year before, sort of like data. It's urgent data, it's now, and it's happening right now. So thanks very much indeed. It's great speaking to you. That was ChatDPS. Catch you soon.
He's all.